So the next bunch of ratios are called working capital ratios. So bear in mind now, we're going to be doing, just a slew of ratios, okay? And this is called accounts receivable days. And again, this information will come off of the accounts receivable comes off the balance sheet, and the sales comes off of the income statement, all right? So again, go through these numbers carefully, okay? And make sure you understand where the information physically comes from, not the simple math. All right, accounts payable days, again, balance sheet divided by income statement here, okay? Okay, and then there's inventory days, which is basically inventory over average daily cost of sales. Again, balance sheet, right? Inventory turnover, annual cost of sales over inventory. Annual cost of sales is income statement, and this is the balance sheet. Okay, here's the numbers. You should make a table now of all these ratios, okay? Interest coverage ratio. So let's see what that's defined as. An assessment by lenders of a firm's leverage. Common ratios consider operating income, Ebit, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization as a multiple of the firm's interest expenses. So EBITDA is basically Ebit plus depreciation and amortization, as I just said. And the interest coverage ratio, again, is Ebit over the interest paid to the bondholders, okay? So, and EBITDA is Ebit over, again, interest. So there's two numbers here, right? All right, so let's go over this here with this book example.
Computing interest coverage ratios. In this problem, we're going to assess Global's ability to meet its interest obligations by calculating interest coverage ratios using both Ebit and EBITDA. Ebit is earnings before interest and taxes, and EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. All the information we're going to need to do this can be found on Global's income statement. So we'll do it for both years 2013 and 2012. What do we need to know? Well, we need to know Ebit, so that's 10.4 for 2013, 7.1 for 2012. We need to know interest expense, so we've got that, 7.7 and 4.6. And to convert from Ebit to EBITDA, we're going to have to add back depreciation and amortization, which is 1.2 and 1.1. So the difference between earnings before interest and taxes and earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization is just adding back the depreciation and amortization. So let's start with 2012 and do the first one, which is the Ebit based ratio. So we're going to take its total Ebit for 2012, which is 7.1. And we're going to see how many times its interest expense is that. So basically the idea is how many times over can it cover its interest obligations with its earnings before interest and taxes. And if you calculate that out, you get 1.54. So basically it earned about 1.5 times its interest obligations. Now, since depreciation and amortization aren't actual cash expenses, you might be interested in terms of its cash flow, how much could it actually cover its interest obligations. And that's why you might be interested in the EBITDA ratio. To solve for EBITDA, over interest, we're going to add back the 1.1 in depreciation and amortization. Since it's not an actual cash outflow, it could have been used to cover interest obligations. So that's 7.1 plus 1.1 over the interest expense, which is 4.6, and you get 1.78 in this case, so closer to 1.8 times its interest obligations. Now that was for 2012. If we repeat everything for 2013, then we just use the 2013 numbers of 10.4 here, and interest expense of 7.7, and we get 1.35. And then here we'd have the 10.4 plus 1.2 over 7.7, and in this case we get 1.51. So even though Global is more profitable in 2013, it also has more debt. So it actually has lower interest coverage ratios in 2013.
All right, so I hope everyone was clear on that. All right, so these are called leverage ratios, and this is basically leverage defines the amount of debt, right, you have in a portfolio. So if you have a lot of debt, you really leave it out, right? We look at the short and long-term debt. So here's the debt equity ratio. Again, this is total debt to total equity. And again, this will come off of the balance sheet, right? So the book debt to equity ratio here is basically you use the book value of the book value of the balance sheet. All right, so again, now here's the next one, and then is the debt to capital ratio. So this is your total capital, right? Debt over total equity over total debt. Again, that's balance sheet, right? And I don't know what happened here, but there's a problem here with this. I don't know what this means. Unknown node type span, so something's wrong here. So I think the word should be basically I don't know what that should be, if it's long or short there. All right, so we won't worry about that, all right? It's either long-term or short-term investments. All right, so if you look at the debt to enterprise value ratio, which is the total value to sell the company or buy the company, it's net debt over market value of equity plus net debt, which comes out to be the enterprise value, which we talked about previously. So go back and you can review the enterprise. All right. All right, so these are the ones you're familiar with most likely. PE ratio from newspapers and everything. It's the market cap of the stock, which is the net income, which is the share price, current share price, right, that you would find in the newspapers, over the earnings per share, which would be on the very bottom of the income statement. And here's the numbers right here, right? All right, so this looks at, again, the PE ratio looks at the value of the firm's equity. So it's sensitive to the firm's choice of leverage, because the equity will vary if the company, and will go down, let's say, if the company has too much debt. Okay, so if the company's overloaded with debt, that'll go down. All right, so again, so people make mistakes with mismatched ratios, not comparing things correctly. Okay. All right, so here's an example for computing. This is a nice example, so please go over this. If you have any questions, email me. And they go through this really nice with all these numbers and everything.